Okay, so we're back with another one. We have Jonathan Yee. He's back. Flip flop extraordinaire. I mean,
Wait.
fucking that G2 IG prediction, but whatever. I'm not gonna hold it
I
against
just
you.
needed time to
Yeah.
think about it.
Well, I don't think you don't want to anger the Reddit mob, or else they might downvote us by not believing in
I
G2, right?
mean,
So,
I get
so
downvoted every single time I post on that subreddit, so I don't really care about that anymore.
hey, that's the content creator life. But no, it's also said that if IG win, it would be anticlimactic. So we better follow the Riot script. They already released their Law Esports
Anti-climatic
article about
bias.
that.
Uh,
But this is how Donkey got axed. Okay, so we don't want to get butchered into like fucking donkey meat or whatever the fuck his avatar is. I don't really know. But okay, all right. So C9 versus the Freaker Freaks. It seemed like Sven went kind of ham this entire series, especially with game one. So, what are your thoughts on just the jungle matchup in general? Because he also brought out the Jingzhou, which I don't think he has ever brought out in the NALCS, I want to say. So this is
no.
kind of a new pick from him. So what did you think about him on this pick?
Mm, I think historically it's shown that he can definitely play champions like Xinjiao, historically at least. So, wow. And I think this ties back into the fact that he hasn't played this on C9 before this. Probably tells you that most teams were not actually prioritizing this Xinjiao pick. And this is a pick that they mostly picked up through playing scrim set roles, seeing the group stage, how teams were using it, and as well as in scrims, you you can kind of guess that this is a new pick to them in a sense, but it's just not a terribly complex champion to pick up. He has pretty simple mechanics, and mostly if you're going for that crazy aggro snowball uh, type of composition, Xinjiao is probably one of the best champions you can use to that extent. So I think he might not have used it in the summer split, but I don't. Apparently that doesn't matter anymore when it comes to growth. You can pick it up. You can probably use it pretty well if you have enough time on it.
Yeah, I mean that's what it seemed like with this entire Worlds meta. People were just picking up champions like crazy. Specifically, let's talk about that Victor pick
Mm,
because Victor top lane.
mm.
It's just like, okay, this shit kind of came out of nowhere. I don't keep track of the solo queue type shit. So, what do you think of Victor top? Because he was like this weird pseudo tank top laner, but yet he had push priority at the same time. So, like, it kind of just defies all metrics of what a top laner should be in terms of push priority and stuff.
So okay, so this pick is really interesting for the sheer fact that it's definitely something that Africa freaks pick. They I don't want to know. I don't quite know if they've picked it up from solo queue or if they just devised it on their own as a counter to Aatrox. And but you can, as we saw in the games, I think as a lane matchup, Victor works very well against into the Aatrox. Uh, in the sense, if we look at it from one v1 perspective without junglers, Victor definitely goes uh, has the advantage in this matchup. And we saw King go for this really greedy build, which was the Cryptomancy, and he basically went the standard Victor build for mid lane, which is to go rush to Lich Bane after the upgrades. But that is the part I think where the freaks probably should have thought of because changing perhaps because because Victor wants like theoretically if he's some Victor is a champion that you need time to scale up and get items, and he becomes really strong from there. But if you have a top laner which is this squishy and this easy to kill in this sense, especially when you're targeted by opposing junglers, aggressive ones even, the the lane matchup, the advantages that you accrue from this advantageous matchup, it's kind of lost. And I think right now people are just testing this pick out in solo queue and just seeing how they can improve on it, because I think Africa, while they showed the pick, they definitely have not perfected it. So you saw Keen having a rather inconsistent series on the Victor because of that.
So,
But
okay.
yeah.
Speaking of another pick, I mean, we saw Kassadin come out in the first game,
Mm.
and Jensen pretty much smashed on him. I mean, due to also getting snowballed mid very early. But I had said before that one of the things in which you don't want to do is probably do a skill matchup into Jensen, right? And with LeBlanc and Kassadin, I feel like it's somewhat of a skill matchup.
It's
Maybe
skills versus
later
like
on. Yeah, it's like
definitely in the early game.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I feel like when you're opting into something like that, it's kind of asking for Svenskeren to just go towards the mid lane so that he can snowball it super hard, and then suddenly you have nothing to do against this LeBlanc.
Mm.
So how do you feel Kuro did in this entire series?
Mm, not very well. He didn't seem very confident of his chances, even though he had the counter pick. Uh, to me, it seemed like Kuro was out of his depth at Rose, because I think it's a similar case to Crown, where his champion pool is just isn't geared towards assassin type champions, and he also has this play style that's more suited towards control mages, and that is what he's built his career on, which is playing control mages like long range, long range wave clearing, get the push priority, but not necessarily the lane advantage. So if the stuff like the Cassidy definitely feels like a bit desperate from the freaks, and on Kuro in particular, because I if you it might be the case that he wasn't confident against Jensen, and decided he had to scale up instead, which obviously didn't work, because there's just no opportunity to scale up when you're on the Cassidy, which is something I don't think he's played that much. He didn't seem too comfortable on it, and he also lost the matchup really hard. Even later on, he just I think he almost got Flame Horizon. Even that is how bad the situation was for the freaks in game one. And yeah, definitely something of a confidence issue on the part of Kuro.
Yeah, so mid lane matchup I thought was pretty bad, and then you go on over towards the bot lane. Now the bot lane I actually didn't think was as bad as what everyone thought it was,
Oh,
but
they actually did well. Uh,
Sneaky fucking turned up. Like this is it's kind of unheard of to think Sneaky as this aggressive bot laner, but they decided to pick Lucian, and it worked pretty well for C9.
hmm.
But what are your thoughts on just the Cloud9 versus a Freak of Freaks bot lane? Because and in one sense, I thought that Cloud9 did quite well, but then again, it's because they're choosing this super early game champion in Lucian, and then hoping to snowball from there.
So this one's definitely tipped. The scales are definitely tipped by the Xinjiao, by Steven. I mean, and they had the better 3v3 in a sense. And we've seen a lot in these roles that if you are Xinjiao on the blue side, you want to get bot lane as early as possible. And Braum and Lucian is actually a disgustingly strong duo, and I'm really surprised that not enough teams have actually opted into this dual matchup, because Lucian and Braum is actually legit disgusting. It's one of like the only lane I can think of that's more oppressive is a Draven lane, and Draven is one that does not he does it on his own, but this is a duo that you don't want to face, even as a Zyra Rakan. Like they didn't go for a Zyra Rakan, but Zyra Rakan were probably lost to this matchup. Just due to how oppressive their laning is, and yeah, I Sneaky, yeah, he definitely had a slight change in his mentality and mindset. He's no longer just sitting back. He's no longer just sitting back to farm, and he's definitely gone way ahead in the aggro part of his game. This seems to be a team wide kind of decision to me, and yeah, I think just adapted. They've adapted well to what the meta has asked of them, sort of, and Sneaky's increased aggression is just a sign of that.
So speaking of that, let's go to game 2 because we saw the Ari pick come up. So I wanted to touch on this because it's not particularly fully meta, and yet we saw it brought out previously. I think it was in the play-in
Planes,
stage. Yeah.
GPM.
And then we have it brought out now to where there is it's like the whole what is that item called? Twin Shadows.
Twin Shadows and
Yeah.
the other item Hextech GLP whatever.
Yeah, and the Glacial Augment. So
Yeah.
let's bring that on the screen here. So what do you think of Ari in this meta right now, and what Cloud9 wanted to accomplish?
This wasn't planned. I have to say this straight up. This wasn't a planned pick from C9. There was nothing clever about it. Literally, they just banned out all Jensen's champions. They banned out the Zillion, they banned out the LeBlanc, they banned out the Syndra. They left you with nothing to play. So that they probably just came out with it on the spur of the moment, just like, hey, why not Ari? Because
Actually, yeah. I think I heard an interview where they were talking about it, of just like, yeah, this wasn't really planned that much,
Yeah.
but we're
No.
just gonna go ahead and do it anyways.
Yeah, like it's I think it definitely did not pan out the way uh, anyone would have thought. Like he lost the laning phase, and he didn't end up doing that much. I really don't think Glacial Augment Ari is anything special. And the way, having seen both GBM and Jensen play it, it's not something that I would say will go better in the semifinals or later on. It's definitely a pick that was forced into them. So to thunder too much on this pick would be to would be to place way more importance on it than he actually had on the game itself as well.
I
I
mean,
feel.
yeah, it seemed like in this game, so Mowgli was subbed in, which, okay, well, let's jump to that first, because there is a difference from Mowgli and Spirit. So
Yeah.
like, what is the difference between these two, and why do you sub them in now in game 2 instead of game 1? Or like, what's the difference between these two junglers, and why would you strategically sub someone in a Freak of Freaks circumstances?
So for the Africa freaks, they tend to they tend to use the junglers as more of a mental reset. And while Spirit and Mowgli they're not terribly different, although they have some differences in the sense that Spirit is definitely, at this point, is more of a prototypical Korean control jungler where he doesn't make too many moves in the early game, but he does try to set up vision and go for ganks they're good for the team. While Mowgli is a bit more aggressive and he has a tendency to hang around the mid lane more than Spirit does. And that's the biggest difference I would say. Other than that, I don't think there's a deep reason behind having to sub out Spirit. Even I don't think he did badly. It's just that's just how Africa tends to do things. If they start losing a game, if they lose a game, they're subbing the other jungler immediately, almost regardless of how that jungler did. This is a strategy that Africa uses consistently, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what it does help is to make the team play in a different way than the game before, and makes them not dwell too much on their mistakes as much, especially during a best of five series where you don't want to think too much about losing, and you want to think more about what you can do next. And
Okay,
subbing Mowgli's that
so I saw Mowgli game 2. He was subbed in, and then he ends up waiting in the fucking bot lane bush for like a full minute. Yeah, and I'm just it doesn't do anything.
He did this in both games 2 and 3 as well.
So
It was kind of funny to watch, even on like two times speed. I was watching the boss on 2 times speed, and he was just there, and the camera was just focused on the bot lane, and Mowgli just standing there. He literally doesn't do anything.
a solid minute, a solid fucking minute. So
like, next level of Medios camping.
when you have shit like that happening, it makes me feel like I don't have any faith in that fucking jungler. That he's just sitting down there wasting time. Meanwhile, Svenskeren is clearing hella camps and just
that's just what Graves does. He clears hella camps and he farms so easily that's just what he ends up doing.
I mean, it looked rough. Anyways, okay, so game 2, I did like the decisiveness from Cloud9 because it seemed like immediately they kind of knew their win condition, which was, okay, we have this Ahri that isn't going to scale well because she went Glacial Augment and then Hextech Proto Belt, and then also
no damage whatsoever.
yeah, no damage whatsoever. So it's like you rush the Baron immediately and pull the trigger. But more importantly, it's that Tus in this game just looked fucking awful, dude. Like, I mean, just really multiple missed pulverizes, everything. So do you think there's some kind of nerves aspect? Because this guy was like, I think he was MVP candidate in LCK. So
he had a very good season, but yeah, I would say there isn't, and there probably isn't an in-game reason as to why he played so poorly in that game. Definitely the whole Africa freaks were feeling the pressure, and they did recover, but so going down 2 games, it probably definitely was weighing on their mind during the series, and you can definitely attribute it to nerve issues at this point, because pretty much all of them were underperforming except for Kane, really.
okay, so let's talk about the third game, because I know everyone's gonna hone in on this aspect of Ornn getting the fucking Baron.
That wasn't even the most impressive part of the game, though. Like, to me, I don't know. It's amazing to watch, but it was just one moment. It didn't change the game. Okay, it changed the game a lot, but there are other things that to talk about in that game, I feel.
I mean, I feel like Africa Freaks were pretty ahead during the majority of the early game. I mean, they tried to snowball bot side, and they had a snowball bot side, and so they just rotated that around the map, right?
They did have a fatal mistake in that game, though. In that they attempted, I think it was around the 11-minute mark, and I think Spirit came down bot lane for gank, and it kind of failed. They somehow failed the 3-2, and that's Tusin had to use the lantern to save Spirit, but this ended up leaving Kramer to die. And given that Kramer was 3-0 up at that point, he actually gave up a lot of shutdown goal to to Sneaky, and then I think this really gave C9 the impetus from there that they could still come back from this, even though the Kramer and Tusin were actually pretty ahead at that point. So that shutdown goal I feel was pretty important as to why in the reason why C9 actually managed to come back.
So, how do you think C9 is looking now after the big 3-0? You know, it seemed like they were playing really, really well. So going into semifinals, you know, they're like the great white NA hope. So, you know, so how are we looking as far as NA fans? Like, what do you know what? Actually, first, before you answer that, because we know they're going against Fnatic. All right, so maybe we need to get into Fnatic's performance. It's probably the better idea.
We have to do that first.
Because this is the second part of the equation. So Fnatic, all right. What do you think about Whippo being started over Soaz the entire time? Do you think he was just the clear-cut better decision than Soaz himself?
I think if we go with a general perception that being aggressive and going and being proactive early game is the way to go, then you definitely want to have Whippo in over Soaz, because Soaz is definitely a more he's definitively the defensive top laner in this team. And if you start Soaz, you end up with this situation where Soaz is just trying to hold on for dear life as whichever top laner tries to whichever jungler tries to target him over and over. He's known as this escape specialist. He's displayed the ability to get out of sticky situations far more than he should. But I don't think this is what Fnatic needs at this point. They don't exactly need to play defensive. Since Reckless himself isn't exactly a focal point for the team either, as we're seeing the trends evolving at Rose, and we're seeing even though Reckless does well in games, he's not the focal point of the team. And if you're having Soaz on the team, that pretty much tells you that Reckless will be the one that's getting the priority. And obviously, given all these factors coming to play, you want to start Whippo first, just because he offers you a bit more lane pressure than Soaz does.
Okay, so going into the games, what's your opinion on Caps and Aurelia? Because previously people were saying, okay, when you play against Fnatic, the must ban is Aurelia, and then suddenly game 1 EDG are just like, fuck that, like, go ahead, take your Aurelia, we're still gonna stomp you. And then they end up getting a pretty good invade level 1, right? Because they get a kill. And just, it seemed like Haro was in the enemy jungle the entire time. So, do you think this is some sort of a weakness when it comes to Fnatic, that if you end up taking their legs out in Broxa, then suddenly they can't function as a team anymore?
I think it's definitely a viable plan to deal with Fnatic. For some reason, I don't know why EDG didn't stick with what they have been doing in the first game, because I thought that was pretty much the template to beat Fnatic. Take out what makes them so threatening early game, Broxa, and then face them head on, which is definitely what they were intending with the clap pick. Which basically clap signals to the enemy team that you just want to fight all day long, and it's pretty much the perfect champion you want to bring in against Fnatic, because Fnatic thrives off being the ones who are taking the game to you, and if they're not doing that, they stand. I would say they stand. They have a bit lower chance of winning games. So I don't know why EDG didn't choose to focus more on the fact that they should have been team fighting more. But that's how the games went. And yeah, so take out Roxa, you leave Caps pretty vulnerable.
Okay, so let's talk about the fucking underage boy that probably shouldn't even be in the fucking tournament. But
Wait.
so boy, as I was saying, kind of with a parallel of Jackie Love, but it's even way more true with boy, and that he is like the true successor to Uzi. So, you know, in terms of his aggression, ridiculous aggression, in fact, and how he just has complete disregard for his own life, his team's chances to win the fucking game.
The amount of times he just uses ulti right in front of 3 people in Phoenix, and then
he just doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
And then he has to flash out the next second after. It was so sad to watch.
He's just like he's like, if you were to think of ADC as like a real shooter, you know, in real life, he would be like the guy with an Uzi in a drive-by. You know, he just doesn't give a shit. He pops off straight up in the hood. Imagine boy with an Uzi. Yeah. Anyways, so how do you think of Uzi or boy? They're so fucking similar now. How do you think he performed this series? Because it seemed like he was aggressive as ever.
I think part of why EDG lost was this over reliance on this Kaiser pick, and just the general trend towards bot lane that we saw from them, for which is at this point is definitely becoming incomprehensible. There's definitely solid evidence that playing towards the bot side does not win you games anymore, but they keep doing this. and Kaiser herself is pretty weird, because we saw her going from being the best ADC to quite possibly the weakest one, in still being prioritized at these roles. And the fact that he played Kaiser for all 3 games just boggles the mind. Like it's to the audience, you look at it, it's like, yeah, they're probably gonna lose. And I have no confidence in the EDG once they started prioritizing the Kaiser pick. So as much as you want to say that, iBoy in the game, he was way too aggressive at times, and so on and so forth, but he, even with a lead, he wasn't able to do anything, and that tells you how poor the Kaiser is at this stage of Rome's. Like the fact that she has a lead and still can't push push inhibitor turrets, for example, or even win team fights.
So, okay, I want to touch on the specific draft of Game 3. Game 3's draft was complete fucking ass. I remember looking at this draft and I was just like, okay, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, but okay, you try and do you, I guess. So they end up picking Tom later on in the draft, yet they have 0 side lane. So I'm not sure what they decided to do. Like, maybe since Alistair wasn't available, they just kind of panicked and locked in Tom Kent. Like, I'm not sure. So do you think the draft in this circumstance was their downfall? Because I mean, to me, it looks like it completely fucking hamstrung them.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of weird that he didn't just opt in for uh the Leona or something. I don't know if Mako can play Leona, but it would have been a logical pick in this scenario, probably. Tom, yeah, he is a strong champion in general, and he's definitely one of the ones one of the picks that would be considered OP at this tournament. But he didn't suit their comp too well, and he ended up looking really weird on the side of EDG, just due to the lack of any threat. He basically just shoehorning Kaiser into this must carry scenario, and the fact that they still did quite okay tells you that, yeah, okay, and but still lost. So they had the draft itself was
Yeah.
definitely a mistake. Then,
I mean, what I saw in this game was that there was what EDG tried to do was they would try to disengage after the Arnold failed and then re-engage, and they would win a lot of team fights from that, which was cool. But eventually, it ended up to where the Orn would then get a good Oltov, and you're just fucked at that point. And then, along with that, like iBoy, he didn't play super mechanically correct, but at that point, you kind of have a shitty comp. It's not much you can do. Um,
I feel sorry for Scout in this game because he was trying very hard to he was trying really hard.
hey, that's what happens when you're a Korean player and you go for that big Chinese bucks, and hey, you got to deal with that shit. I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, if you want to go to China and you want to try and make
There's
that
Rookie as well.
cheddar, like, yeah, and then Rookie too, like, yeah, they're just stuck in this purgatory, just fucking money raining down on them, but instead,
Uh,
like,
I
they're
think, well,
constantly just
Scout's story is a bit different. I feel is less about the big bucks and the fact that he you have to remember that he came out of SKT, where he only got to start one game in the Casper Cup throughout his whole
it,
time on the team, and
it's true.
it's just I think he felt at the point. There was an interview with him as well, where he just said, "I have to go." Like he used his mom. I think the interview his mom, and his mom was like saying, oh, it's like was like during the interview she said, Scout said he had to go to China.
It's like
Yeah,
that fucking meme, where that guy, that superhero or whatever, he's like, I have to go. My planet needs me.
yeah,
And then
Superman.
he
It's just
just
like
fucking goes off in the
fucking
air.
Superman.
It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's the spitting image of Scout.
yeah.
And
I
it's not
I
like
can
he's
I
gonna
can see
make
why he
much
had
more
to.
money, but like at least he'll get a starting position at the very least.
I
So
think he just really needed a starting position, and EDG were willing to give it to him.
okay, so basically Whippo ended up being like a fucking beast. In the last game, he was up at like 60 CS at one point, something like that. And he pretty much ended up solo winning that game with top Klepto on Swain. And then Reckless was also super far ahead in the bot lane. So, do you think we see more of this to where Fnatic aren't afraid to kind of put all their chips in like this Whippo bag and just say, hey, fucking play Swain if they aren't going to ban it? Like, is this a ban-worthy champion when Whippo is in the lineup?
Mm, it does depend on the matchup because Swain is a really good pick into most utility tops, and uh, if you have, let's say in this game for example, they drafted this Scion in what was actually becoming a very typical Chinese downfall composition where they go too much on the bot side and fail, and it's I C9 C9 isn't gonna do something like that, right? And we all know that Licorice has more picks up his sleeve than just Sion and Shen and all that. So it, it is definitely lane matchup dependent, and they would maybe C9 will ban the Swain if they feel it's necessary for the game, but I don't think it's a default ban.
Okay, so let's talk about the Cloud9 versus Fnatic matchup because this is
Mm.
about to come up. Now, if you think
Western
of
Civil War.
yeah, this is the Western fucking Civil. This is like Boston Tea Party type shit. Like, like we about to get really real here. Like, fuck your twinning shit. Like, dumping that in the sea. So, how does Fnatic win, and how does Cloud9 win too? Like, what are the win conditions of both of these teams in terms of stylistic matchup? Like, how do these guys match up against each other?
Mm, so both Fnatic and C9 didn't have the cleanest series. Like even though Cloud9 had that 3-0, I felt it was actually a lot closer than the scoreline would indicate. The three it was pretty close 3-0, and Africa had quite a few opportunities to get ahead, but it's many out of game issues that were hampering them. Fnatic do not have such issues, and it would take definitely Fnatic would be on hand to punish a lot of C9's weaknesses. I feel what's the weaknesses that C9 have shown so far are definitely exploitable by Fnatic, given how Fnatic have consistently proven that if they manage to get a good jungle matchup, they will go ham. And Sven does have a smaller champion pool than Broxer does at the moment. So if it comes down to a jungle matchup, Broxer has the edge to me. And if that is the case, then you'll be really hard for C9 to mount a comeback or a good series. So that will be how Fnatic wins. But for C9, a lot will have to depend on whether they can contain Broxer. It's the same scenario. I think the jungle is where a lot of the attention will be focused on both sides. And if Svengo has tried, he got the advantage a lot in the Africa match because Africa didn't have a particularly good solid plan to deal with Cloud9. It would be it, I can't see C9 having such a huge advantage in the jungle matchup against Fnatic. Definitely, you want to either ban or take away the Lee Sin, but we've seen a lot of people try to do that and it's failed so far. But that might be because Chinese junglers are just not as good. Like they're just not as good in general, so their mechanics are relatively lacking compared to like Korean or even certain Western junglers. So whether C9 wants to take the Lee Sin away or just I don't think it's worthy of a ban. So Sven historically has been known as a good Lee Sin player, but we've not seen that recently. At the same time, we've also seen that C9 are not afraid to just take out any pick that you have not used in fucking ages. So my guess is that they'll try to take away the Lee Sin, and if that works, they will have a advantage. But if they take the Lee Sin and they still fail, I think there will be very limited options for them from that point onwards. Like Sylvain can still default to the Graves, or he can still go back to the Talia, because I'm betting your ass that C9 are not getting that Nocturne pick.
So
They're not getting it.
that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that it's all gonna come down to this jungle matchup, and it seems like C9 is pretty enabled by their jungler, but that's the same with Broxa as well too on Fnatic, and you have this point of pressure with both of these teams, which is mid lane. It's both of them get enabled by the jungler, which then enables the mid laner, and so now you have this 2v2 matchup, and we both know that Fnatic is very good, probably the best 2v2 matchup when it comes to jungle mid synergy. So you have this fundamental style of clash that is similar. And so then it becomes, okay, well, who's really going to win out in this?
Which Danish 2v2 is going to win?
Yeah. So it's I think that's where it gets very interesting. And then you have Whippo versus Licorice top lane, maybe. I'm going to say most likely in the beginning. And normally these two top laners, they get their own advantage. So this might be this isolated 1v1 to where you just see who the fuck is the better top laner when it comes to, their whatever their specific matchup is, so maybe it'll be champion dependent in that circumstance. So I'm curious to see the difference between these top laners when they get a similar like 50-50 matchup. And then also if both the teams, they want to draft for either the top lane or the mid lane in terms of champion priority and like last pick or counter pick, I think that'll be pretty dope. Now,
he's actually, yeah.
What I'm wondering, okay, predictions. I got you on the last one. It was like, damn, you didn't want to go with the IG. You were just like, no, what about those G2 fanboys? They're gonna fucking hate on me. Like,
I don't give a fuck, man. it's just, like, fanboys are just there. They'll be fanboys. I don't really care. Like, okay, C9 versus Fnatic. I think Fnatic.
I mean, either way, Reddit's gonna fucking hate you anyway, so it doesn't really matter at this point.
Doesn't matter. I think Fnatic has the edge. I know. It's always C9 has the hype going for them. They were supposed to lose to the Africa Freaks, or they 3-0 them. How dare you say that C9 will lose this? You always have stuff like this, but this isn't good predicting. It's legit. You're not even looking at the games and just looking at the results. So I don't want to do that. I want to do what the analysts have been doing and consistently failing at these roles, which is to try to predict the score based on how they've played, how they might play. It's as much as he has failed these roles, I'm still not going to give up on the approach just because it's just more realistic to do it. You can't just go on gut feeling when it comes to predictions like this. So Fnatic has the edge to me. They seem more composed. Even when they're losing, they still have a good idea of what they should do to get back into the game. While C9 has similar, they have a similar identity in this respect, but I think if you're looking at a Caps versus Jensen matchup, Caps I feel they will, if Caps has a good matchup, he'll just take over the game, while Jensen is far less certain. Even with a good matchup, he'll definitely take over. I think this might be underestimating him a bit, but he from what I've seen of him, he doesn't actually. If he comes out against a mid laner that's about as skilled as he is, he might not be. He might not be. What is the word? As good when the time comes.
Okay, so you're going what, 3-0 Fnatic?
Maybe. Yeah, let's go with that. 3-0 Fnatic.
3-0. Damn. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go with a little bit more sturdy 3-1. The true analyst prediction because it's the most likely outcome. But I'm gonna go 3-1 Fnatic. I really think that at least Reaper's gonna be able to come out with some fucking weird ass draft or weird pocket pick at least within one of these games, or Fnatic aren't going to think that Zillion is a not bannable champion, and they're just gonna be like, oh yeah, let's just let that shit through real quick. Let's just see what's gonna happen.
That'll be pretty interesting to see if it's true. Yeah.
So that's what I'm predicting. I don't know. Either way, everybody's gonna hate us anyways, no matter what. So I don't give a
I'm
fuck.
not gonna pretend. I'm not gonna pretend that C9 were always a good team. So
Well, there we have it. All right, with a little bit of flame, we'll see what comes back at us. And I guess we'll see you guys after semifinals or not, because that shit will just be downvoted anyway. So, peace.
see you.